In the center of its capital city, Germany built a massive 200,000 square foot field of concrete blocks. It is a permanent physical admission of national guilt for the Holocaust, placed exactly where the government conducts its daily business. A surging political faction is now actively demanding the country tear down that consensus. Bjorn Höcke, a prominent leader in the Alternative for Germany Party, or AfD, calls the memorial a monument of shame and demands a 180-degree turnaround in the country's politics of remembrance. The party's honorary chairman, Alexander Galland, publicly stated that the 12 years of Nazi rule are a mere speck of bird shit compared to 1,000 years of successful German history. Their candidate for chancellor, Alice Weidel, dismisses the nation's culture of accountability as a guilt cult. She argues that German politics should be driven by pride and future confidence, rather than dwelling on past crimes. The AfD is winning crucial state elections and drawing tens of thousands of supporters to public rallies, where crowds openly cheer for this sanitized version of history. The nation that spent decades carefully constructing the global standard for historical accountability is watching that foundation crack. To understand why it's breaking down now, we have to look at how that consensus was actually built. After the total collapse of the Third Reich in 1945, the Cold War physically divided the nation. That concrete barrier also created two competing, flawed narratives about who was actually responsible for the war. In the West, early leaders engaged in public penance and paid reparations abroad to normalize foreign relations. At home, however, they maintained a solidarity of silence, quietly reintegrating former Nazis into the civil service and judiciary. East Germany took a contrasting approach. The socialist government framed fascism as the inevitable result of Western capitalism, shifting the blame entirely onto a narrow clique of ideologues and presenting their own citizens as heroic communist resistors. This table summarizes how the two states handled compensation and memory. While the West set up a scheme of compensation payments for Jewish survivors, the East preserved concentration camps specifically as memorials to anti-fascist freedom fighters, highlighting the persecution of communists over Jewish victims. By framing the Holocaust as a capitalist crime, East German schools omitted the co-responsibility of their own population. They even downplayed basic facts, like the production of lethal gas within their borders. For 30 years, neither half of the divided country engaged in a genuine societal reckoning with the human reality of the genocide they had either participated in or passively sanctioned. The silence in the West finally broke in 1979, triggered by the broadcast of an American television miniseries called Holocaust. Viewers watched the dramatized story of a Jewish family, attaching human faces to what had previously been taught as clinical names and numbers. Call-in forums were flooded with thousands of weeping West Germans asking how their society could have allowed this to happen. The public pressure generated by those 4 television episodes forced the West German parliament to promptly cancel the statute of limitations for Nazi war crimes, which had been set to expire that same year. Curious, intellectual tone. This emotional awakening spilled into academia during the 1980s through the Historikerstreit, a historian's quarrel where academics publicly debated how to incorporate the Holocaust into German identity. Scholars argued over whether the Holocaust was a singularly evil event, or if it could be compared to other 20th century atrocities, like those committed under Stalin. The debate ignited when Chancellor Helmut Kohl and U.S. President Ronald Reagan visited a military cemetery containing the graves of Waffen-SS members. For many, this diplomatic visit looked like an attempt to smooth over the darkest parts of the German past. Through these media broadcasts and academic disputes, West Germany slowly built its culture of remembrance. But East Germany bypassed this reckoning completely, leaving a historical blind spot that modern extremists are positioned to exploit. Today, the AfD is recruiting heavily in the former East. They instrumentalize the memory of the 1989 peaceful revolution, portraying themselves as the true heirs of democratic freedom, rising up against an oppressive government. This chart shows how they organize these campaigns online. Notice the spike in the light blue bars starting in 2017. These represent AfD politicians aggressively using Twitter to hijack the anniversaries of historical events, injecting their revisionist messages into the mainstream. This digital contestation is occurring at a fragile turning point. The physical generation of Holocaust survivors and eyewitnesses, the people who can directly refute these revised histories, is rapidly passing away. To counter this, massive archiving initiatives are working to digitize millions of historical documents. Crowdsourcing campaigns invite young people to participate in active remembrance, ensuring the raw evidence outlives the people who experienced it. Museums are deploying interactive biographies and holographic projections. These systems allow students to verbally ask questions and receive answers from pre-recorded survivor interviews, preserving the voice of the witness for the next century. The process of Vergangenheitsbewältigung, the effort of coming to terms with the past, is not a settled destination. It is a multi-generational struggle where the promise of never again requires a daily active defense of historical truth.